Game one for Nebraska, just a few days away. What does game one look like for Dylan Raiola? Matt Rhule spills the details coming up.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. And thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts in on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. All you have to do is head to FanDuel.com/lockedon and get started.
All right, welcome in. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone in Omaha is here with me on this Tuesday morning. If you're just finding the show, hey, thanks for finding us. Be sure to follow and subscribe and like and listen and download and all of the things that you do on both YouTube and the podcast listening platform. So on Monday, Nebraska released a depth chart. And we are going to get into all of the oars, not the rowing kind of oars, but the oars that separate players when they don't really separate them. Really, the oars are just at running back and kicker. And then there are a few surprises on the depth chart that we'll dive into also. But first, let's talk about Matt Rhule and what he had to say on Monday at his first weekly game preview press conference of the season, specifically as it relates to Dylan Raiola. Your thoughts, Connor, on how things went in this lead up to week one when they're just trying to just keep that hype for the true freshman at a minimal level.
Yeah, I think we saw another good example of that today. We're going to play it for you here. So, what's game one look like for Dylan Raiola? What's game one look like for Nebraska? Matt Rhule says, "Hey, we're gonna rip this thing, man. We're going to go for it." And there's some things that they're going to ask Dylan Raiola to do right away that he's just going to have to figure out. So here's Matt Rhule on that today. I thought this was an interesting response.
Going to play. He's going to play the plays, right? He's going to, when we call drop back, he's going to go back there, take his drop, go through his progression. Just how we want him to play when he's a junior. We're going to start day one that way. We're not easing into anything.
Is that because that's what Dylan has showed you? Would you do that with anybody?
It's a great question. So I don't mean to demean it, but just this is where I'm at right now. This is just where I'm at. I mean, I don't know if I'd be like this with anybody else. I don't know, but this is just where I'm at. This is how I feel. It's a good thing.
It's a good. Just to let you know, it's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
So yeah, I mean, there's obviously been some differentiating factors that have led to Dylan Raiola being the starting quarterback and not anybody else being the starting quarterback,
because he's really good.
Yeah, I think that's probably has a lot to do with it. Yeah, but all those reasons, we're gonna have to wait to see him on display until Saturday. And you know what? We've waited a couple 100 days already. What's 3 more? So let's hang in there, I guess.
I'm looking forward to it, and that's just where I'm at. That's it. That's where I'm at. Nothing else.
No more podcasts today. I can't wait till Saturday.
All right, we'll see you Saturday. That's about as short as you get from Matt Rhule. He's very polite with the answers when it comes to talking with the media. And sometimes coaches, if they don't prefer to answer a question, there's no apologies made. It's just, I don't really have anything to say about that. And that says nothing about them. Like, they're just things that coaches don't want to talk about. And Matt Rhule doesn't really go there, but I think he kind of did in this case on Monday, because he, like I said, he doesn't want to pile on. Like, Dylan, I'm sure is feeling the weight of an entire state, of an entire football program, of all the tradition. It was funny the other day. This has actually been a couple weeks now. Nebraska, it was before Raiola was named the starter. They tweeted a photo the university did, or the Nebraska football account. It was just Dylan from behind, and he was looking up at the back of the scoreboard where it has the national championship seasons listed. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd, because they've yet to announce him as the starter. And I kind of read it like, oh, he's taking in the history. And now that we're in game week, I think you could view that a little different, and you could say, man, the weight of all of this is probably something that I don't want to say it's coming down on him, but it's there, and you feel it. And until he plays, and until he begins to build his own legacy, it's impossible, I'm sure, in his position, not to feel the gravity of the moment. And Matt Rhule wants to do absolutely nothing in his public statements this week to add to that.
Right. No, I don't think so. And that's been the way they've been all off season. I thought, we guessed that they might turn that key a little bit. They might, add a little bit more as we get into the final stretch here, but no. And that's okay. Like that's not a bad thing, but I do find it interesting. Like the answer to the question, overall, which is, rather than like, why do you feel that way? But the actual answer to the question, which is like, we're not going to, like, a lot of coaches will say, all right, we got a freshman quarterback here. We're playing UTEP. Let's see if we can lean on him and get out of there and, run it for 250 and take our win and try for Colorado next week. Like, a lot of coaches would say that. We have a freshman quarterback. Let's make it really, really easy for that person. And so I think what they're saying is, obviously they're not going to try and make it hard for him, but they're going to they're going to let him play quarterback. They're going to let him have a dose of reality in week one. And that means if he gets knocked down a couple of times, like, all right, get up, man. Like, let's go. If you make a bad read, you throw an interception. All right. Like, we got to work through this. They're not going to artificially manipulate and manufacture situations where he can have success just to artificially boost his confidence. They believe in building confidence through hard work. And that's, I think, the attitude they're taking with him.
That's a great point. And it takes me back a little bit to July when I was in Indianapolis at Big Ten Media Days. And I was talking to some coaches and former coaches. I had a conversation with, it was Gary Danielson or Rick Neuheisel. I talked to both of those guys from CBS, and I think we both talked about this, but I talked to both of them about this a little bit. And maybe Danielson was the one who was more adamant about part of the reason that you see true freshmen have success in young quarterbacks, like a pair of redshirt freshmen won the Heisman Trophy in the 2010 decade. Part of the reason that you do it, or that you see that, is because coaches have like baked the decisions, baked the game out of it. And it's become so system oriented, and the players just run the plays that they're told to run, and they don't have to think about it, and they don't have to diagnose, and they don't have to really play the quarterback position in the way that great quarterbacks do. In the NFL, they really play the position. And in college, the guys who are veterans, they do the same thing. Caleb Williams was really playing real quarterback last year, but you can argue that some young guys who've had success, they don't really do that. They're just out there playing the scheme and doing exactly what their coaches tell them, and they're skilled enough and talented enough that they can win games and make completions. Nebraska wants Dylan to play quarterback, to actually play the position and learn what that means, because it's better in the long run.
Just so we're all on the same page here, like, Dylan Raiola signed up for this. Dylan Raiola could have gone to Georgia, sat out his freshman year, and then won the Heisman once and become the first pick in the NFL draft. He gave all that up by signing to Nebraska. He's not going to be the number one overall pick because of the offense that they play in. He's probably not going to win a Heisman because of the offense that they play in. Like,
you don't think Nebraska's offense can give him a Heisman?
I don't think they're.
How's Nebraska's offense that much different than Georgia?
They open it up, go fast, and spread it out, man. Like they're moving a little bit.
Yeah, I think Nebraska's going to morph the offense and build it around what he wants to do, and I think it'll become more of a pro-style system that resembles what Georgia has done. Now, I mean, he's not going to have the talent around him. No matter what happens at Nebraska, he's not going to have the receivers ever that the Georgia quarterback does, and that is going to diminish his possibility to be the number one pick.
The better way to put it is that he took the harder path. I mean, that's been discussed a lot. He took the harder path. by ending up at Nebraska. And, they knew that, and everybody knew that when he got here. And it's just going to be, and so I think it's purposeful to do it this way and say, all right, your trial by fire starts right now. Like, let's go. And eventually it builds to the point where he's learned so much by trial and error that he leads the team. Because the way that this staff and Marcus Satterfield especially talks about quarterback play is not so much in the throws that you make and the reads that you make and the checks that you make. It's like the way you lead, that's playing quarterback to those guys. And he can't do that without being out there with his guys for, and being in the, I don't know, that in the trenches. People always do that, but they're going to make some mistakes. They're going to screw up together. That always helps. And he'll be better for it at the end of the day.
You don't want the war analogies.
I don't.
I'm not really down with that either. But if you want to talk about trenches and it's in the line of scrimmage, fine. But we're not going to compare him to soldiers in battle. He's doing good work, but it's not on that level. Hey, one thing before we get to the first break that Rhule said on Monday is he said he would rather lose the first one than the last one, and this was in
it was right in the lead up to
context
that answer that you heard.
Yeah, it was in the context of the conversation about the way that they're going to work. Are you going to ease the quarterback in? No, we're not going to ease him in. We're throwing him right in there. And if that means we lose the first one, that's not fine. That's better than losing the last one. We want to be a better product at the end of the season than at the beginning of the season. And I think that might have come across differently if Nebraska were opening the season this year against Minnesota, Northwestern Illinois, Ohio State, or Colorado, which are 5 of the past 6 openers that this program has amazingly seen. Saying that before UTEP is kind of it brings out this nervous laugh, and people are like, all right, coach, you don't really mean that, right? We know that you're planning to win this game.
Yeah. Great idea. I love what you're going for here, but you can't lose to UTEP. Sorry, that's against the rules.
Yeah. All right. So after the break, we're going to talk about Nebraska's 4-headed running back and some other things that we noticed about the depth chart. That is coming up next. We will be right back after this. All right, Mitch Sherman here for 5 Hour Energy, a new sponsor of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I want to ask you if you are ever tired after lunch. I was tired today after lunch, and sadly, I was behind the wheel of my car driving home because I grabbed lunch after talking with Matt Rhule on Monday morning, and had to keep myself awake because don't want to fall asleep behind the wheel of a car. One thing that can help in that situation is some 5 Hour Energy. In fact, research shows that 70% of us hit a wall after lunch. You work hard, so let a 5 Hour Energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. We're not literally crashing into anything, but you can crash after lunch, like crash while on your couch or at your desk. So 5 Hour Energy has 0 sugar. It comes in a convenient portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. They have flavors galore like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone. Try them all. On the site, you have the website to build your own 12 or 24 pack. So go to 5 Hour Energy. That's the number 5hourenergy.com and get some 5 Hour Energy today. Use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your first order. Offer valid until September 30th on one order only. It cannot be combined with other promotions. Not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com.
All right, welcome back. Connor Happer and Mitch Sherman with you. Reminder, like and subscribe the Locked On Nebraska podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Still taking questions for that mailbag show on Thursday. We'll open that up, lockedonneb@gmail.com. You can send us your tweets as well at lockedonneb. So welcome back to the show. It is we got a depth chart today, Mitch. We had a whole episode predicting the depth chart. I think it
wasn't too bad.
It wasn't a bad guess, but we definitely predicted more ors than we got.
We did. Yeah.
So yeah, we were a little liberal with the or usage. Here's what we got, and your eyes are immediately drawn to the ors. my eyes would have been drawn to the running back position anyway. But here's how it turned out. And I want to give myself a little bit of credit here because I think I mentioned in one of these episodes, could I convince you that all three of them are oars at the running back position?
I maybe shot that down.
Well, I wasn't exactly right because we got four of them. Ramir Johnson, Emmett Johnson,
Amazing.
Gabe Ervin, and Dante Dowdell all are the first string running back for Nebraska coming up on Saturday.
Code number one.
Yeah.
So Ramir was listed first. In the order that you read them: Emmett, Gabe Ervin, and then Dante Dowdell. So they didn't do it in alphabetical order. Last year, when they at first listed oars, they listed them in alphabetical order, and I think they realized, like, all right, we're not going to play that game because you would have had Dante Dowdell at the top, and I don't think anyone believes that Dante Dowdell is coming in to take the first carry of the game. It looks like it's going to be Ramir Johnson. That would be my guess, unless they're in some kind of a set that calls specifically for a play that Gabe Ervin is the best at running. But I think Ramir, as the senior and as the leader of this group, or one of the leaders of this group, certainly Gabe Ervin is a leader and Emmett Johnson is a leader. Ramir has earned this right.
I think they have a lot of reverence for older guys and guys who have been around for a long time, and they're, at least at the start of the season, they're going to give those guys the first crack, and then kind of see what happens. And it looks like that'll be the case with Ramir and some others on the depth chart too.
Yeah, you saw that reflected in some other places too, where I think if there was a close battle, they went with the older player first, and that's not a bad thing because, like Matt Rhule said, there's kind of two teams here in camp, or have been in camp for Nebraska. The older team, the guys who are doing everything right, and then there's the younger team in the back of the room who are still learning the ways of Nebraska football. So you might be really talented and have earned some playing time, but unless it's definitive, like in the case of a Dylan Raiola or Ja'Cory Barney or Vincent Shavers, we'll talk about some of these other true freshmen in a minute. You may have to wait your turn behind a veteran, or show it in a game that you are you are unequivocally the better option for Nebraska. I'm thinking of somebody at the receiver spot. We might as well just say it. I think Carter Nelson, as the slot receiver, is going to get more reps than your typical number 3 guy. He's behind Janiron Bonner. He's behind Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. And if they're going to play Carter, which they are, they're going to give him reps. Like he's going to be on the field, and he has a specific skill set that others on this team at any of the receiver positions or the tight end positions just don't have. So they'll find a way to get him on the field. And a couple weeks into the season, you may see him at 2 or co-number 1 or something like that.
They list 9 guys at 3 receiver spots, two wide receiver spots like X and Y, and then a slot. Those guys are Banks, Nair, Bonner, Lloyd, Barney, Garcia Castaneda, Coleman, Bullock, and Carter Nelson. They're gonna play all those guys, but eventually I think they're gonna get it whittled down to probably about 6.
6 or 7. Yeah.
And they're going to go with that. And so this is your rough draft, basically. That's how Rhule put it today with the running back position. We're just going to throw all the guys out there and hope, theoretically we would have loved to have an answer by now, but we don't. So let's go roll the ball out there and see who makes the most of their opportunity. And let's have an answer by the time October rolls around. And it's not like plan A, but maybe Nebraska will have an answer at the end of September, or maybe they won't. But at some of those wide receivers, the wide receiver spot, some of the other spots on offense, it's a little bit more defined.
Yeah, I'd even target September 20th. I think that's a big date. I think that's what Nebraska views as like the start of the second season. That's the Friday night when Illinois comes to Lincoln, and Nebraska will have 3 games under its belt, and one against a power program that should challenge it in ways, Colorado, that UTEP and Northern Iowa don't. So I think if you took the depth chart today and you looked at it and compared it to what the depth chart's going to look like on September 20th, and of course we can't account for and know what's going to happen as far as the player's health, and some of the stuff may just take care of itself. If you have a running back or 2 who gets injured, then that's going to automatically shape the playing time. Same thing with receivers or offensive linemen, but I think they're looking at that date, and they may not get there. It may still be a week or 2 down the road after that before they really know who is going to carry this team into November and into a bowl game. But September 20th to me, I think, is a big date for Matt Rhule and his assistant coaches to determine some of these spots that are still up in the air.
Couple surprise names popped up. Who, I mean, maybe a guy who's been mentioned at once on this podcast. Ramir Stewart is the second string rover. He's backing up Isaac Gifford at this moment. Mm-hmm. That was a guy who did not make the initial 120. Matt Rhule said today it was because they wanted him to get his weight down. He kept it down, and they like him as a player. It's just he's got to be able to do the right thing. And here he is after not making the initial 120, popping up on the 2 deep for Nebraska.
That's a pretty big leap.
That's a
pretty big leap, and he wasn't there for all of camp. So he came in sometime in camp and jumped past a few dozen players and just said, all right, I'm here. And I don't think it was a matter of talent or playing ability with Ramir Stewart. He's a redshirt freshman from Philadelphia. It was more, like you said, they wanted him to be in shape, and they didn't want him to be 215 pounds or wherever he was at. They wanted him at 205. He's listed at 210 on the depth chart. Rhule said he's around 205, and that's where they need him to be able to play safety in this as a part of this defense.
The other 2 safety spots, Derek Branch is the second stringer behind Malcolm Hartzog, and Kobe Bretz is the backup behind Deshaun Singleton. Those are each guys. I mean, all 3 of the second stringers at those safety positions. I mean, none of those guys we really talked about all throughout fall camp, and they slot in there. And now they're a little deeper at cornerback. Bly Hill probably not going to be an option for Nebraska in week 1, but he's going to be in the mix at corner at some point. Amari Sanders was the guy that we pegged as making a move. He seems to make that move. He's behind Tommy Hill at that corner spot. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys back there, and some guys who we did talk about who didn't make the 2 deep, who I still feel like Nebraska is going to have to play and lean on at some point this year. A lot of young guys back there who didn't show up. Once again, they went with old guys. Brett's been in the program for a couple of years. Branch, a walk-on from Southeast, has been in the program for a couple of years. So, interesting the way they kind of set that defensive backfield up.
We talked some about the receivers, but Corey Barney, the true freshman's number 2 behind Isaiah Nair at one of the receiver spots. Carter Nelson, as I said, number 3 at the slot receiver. And then on the linebacker, you have Vincent Shavers. No surprise there at all. Yep. Number 2 at one of the inside positions. He's been a standout since the spring behind John Bullock. So without Javen Wright, they've got Mekhi Bayer and John Bullock starting at inside linebacker, and then Shavers and Stephon Thompson, the newcomer transfer from Syracuse, as a backup.
Hey, quickly on Shavers, I'll make a prediction here. You mentioned that second season starts on September 20th. Vincent Shavers is the first string linebacker by September 20th at that position. Prediction number 1 of the season for me.
That's a good prediction. So I think what we should do here, and we've been talking about this. Well, let's talk about this after the break. What we're going to do with our predictions and what we're going to do with our mailbag. Let's bring it back after the break. Want to finish this segment by telling you that college football is back. The Locked On College Football Podcast is back. It is your place to find season previews. Go there, check out our 4-part series that covers the Power 4 conferences with discussions on which teams have a shot at the expanded college football playoff. Be sure to check it out on the Locked On College 24/7 YouTube channel or on Amazon Fire TV. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, it's Tapper here for Ultimate College Football HC. Want to take a moment and give you a heads up. It's a brand new mobile game. I think you're going to like it because you're a college football fan just like me, and you've maybe thought about what you would do if you were running your own program. So in this game, in this simulation, you could step into the shoes of a head coach. You could lead your college football program. You could be the head coach of Nebraska if you'd like to. You could be the head coach of any other college football program you'd like to. So you get to recruit the players and hire the coaches and oversee the events and the training camps and scholarships and money. All that stuff is in there. It's in your hands. So there's that. And, maybe a real coach wouldn't be able to do all of these things and be able to call plays at the same time. Guess what? You do. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of the season, but will shape the future and the legacy of your program. It could be whatever you want to be. Ultimate College Football HC, free, no ads, 100% playable offline. You can play on the go, when and where you want to. And of course, we have a special for you. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, LOCKEDONCFB, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. Download the game. Visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com. Check it out in the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today.
All right, we're back for the final segment of this Locked On Nebraska podcast on Tuesday of week 1. I am Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer is with me. So I've got a proposal for you, Connor. We've been talking about how this stuff is going to set up with game week. This is our first trip down this road and what we want to do with the pod for the rest of the week. We've been talking about this predictions show that we want to do, about a mailbag show. We've got some questions in the mailbag. If you want your question answered in the mailbag, send it in. Send it in to lockedonneb@gmail.com. Give us a question in the YouTube comment section. Send it to us on Twitter at Mitch Sherman, at Connor Happer, whatever you want to do. Call me on the phone. Ask me a question. I'm not going to hand out my number, but whatever you need to do, find my email.
That's the point.
Yes,
we're very accessible.
Yes, mail me a question in the mail. I don't care. We'll answer it. I think we should go Friday. And this is why. First of all, we're going to be looking for things to talk about on Friday, the day before the game. So why not a little hodgepodge? But the main reason is I would like to do predictions on Thursday because I want to make some predictions about Colorado, North Dakota State, which is a Thursday game, and the Minnesota, North Carolina game is a Thursday game. So I think we get that out of the way a day early and maybe, just go week to week on when we predict things.
Indeed. Okay. So we'll definitely do maybe we could split it up into two. We're producing the show on air now. Like maybe we split it up into two segments where we do like Nebraska related predictions. And then we'll do like the rest of the college football world predictions at some point. In this case, we'll do the big picture college football predictions on Thursday. Cause like I said, there's a bunch of big games on Thursday, Minnesota, North Carolina. We got Colorado. What's going to happen? Everybody's watching. That's for sure. By the way, what kind of number do you think that'll do viewers wise? North Dakota State and Colorado.
What's the network? What's it on?
It's on ESPN.
Oh, the big
I don't
mothership.
know I'll make sure for you real quick, but I believe it because they were promoting it during the Ireland game.
What do you think? Like 2 or 3 million for that? I mean, people are now getting interested in Deion Sanders because he's banning questions from reporters and
it's on the
like
he's getting it's on flat out ESPN.
Of course it is. I mean, it's Colorado and it's North Dakota State. This is a compelling game. We're going to talk about this on Thursday, but we should predict how many viewers this game will have as part of our Thursday package of predictions.
Well, that's going to do well.
Yeah. Let's talk about some injuries. So Matt Rhule announced a few things. I'm not going to say which one intrigued me. It's not the right word. Which one kind of caught my attention the most? So I'll read off these injuries and you tell me where your attention went. So Brody Tagaloa, who's making his way back from that car accident in the summer of 2023, he's out for another week or so. Bly Hill, the corner who was hurt in the spring game, listed number 3 behind Marquise Buford and Sire Wright. He's out for another week or so. Henry Lutovsky, Nebraska's number 2 left guard, behind Justin Evans, is maybe available in an emergency. He's been working his way back from a calf injury. And Gunnar Gatula, who's number 2 at right tackle behind Bryce Benhart, he's had an ankle injury late in camp and is also questionable, maybe emergency only this week, but should be good for Colorado. And then, of course, there's Tristan Alvano, who's listed co-number 1 with John Hull at kicker. So not including Alvano. Which one of these is most eye-opening?
Let's see. Let's go over to the depth chart here. Okay, so right tackle, Bryce Benhart, Gunnar Gatula. That's it. Left tackle, Turner Corcoran, Grant Segrin. That's it. You might be asking a couple questions. Number 1, who's Grant Segrin? Great question. We don't exactly know who Grant Segrin is. So it feels as if Nebraska has exactly 2 tackles it can trust at the moment, and they'll both start on Saturday.
I think they can trust Gunnar Gatula, but he's got to be healthy to do that, or they feel like he's a guy that they're going to be able to trust. Matt Rhule made some kind of a comment earlier in camp about how it's time for Gunnar to step up and be a big boy and play big boy college football. This was after the injury to Teddy Prohaska, and Gunnar Gatula is the guy that Matt Rhule said if he would have been in the portal this offseason, everyone would have been knocking down his door. Like, he's that kind of a player. So it's time. Well, it's not time because Gunnar's got an ankle injury. Like, what's happening here to the offensive tackles? I know Bryce Benhart has started 172 games consecutively, but something could happen and they would need Gunnar Gatula. So not feeling awesome if I'm Nebraska about that tackle depth that seems to be getting more and more shaky by the week.
If you do make an interesting point, though, I'm looking at the returning starts as well. So if you combine Corcoran left tackle and Benhart right tackle, those two have an astronomical 73 starts in their college careers combined. So the chances that they're going to be out there is actually really, really good. Like, the chances that they're going to stay healthy has been good. Like, Benhart,
for sure,
Benhart has really never been hurt in his college career, if I remember. Now we're really tempting fate, right? And Corcoran was hurt a little bit last year, and that's basically it.
Is it Bryce Benhart? Is it impossible for him to get injured? Should we just completely ruin any chance at all that he's going to survive game one without a season-ending injury?
This is not going to be looked upon. This is going to go. Aggregators, you're welcome. You just got free content if somebody gets hurt in week one. This is not going to look good for us. Not going to be good at all.
Now they need to get Gatula back, just for the peace of mind of everyone, and Nebraska's hoping that if not this week, then he's definitely ready to go against Colorado in week 2.
That's definitely the one that stands out. All right, we will continue on with game week tomorrow. We'll get closer and closer as we begin to make some predictions and thoughts on other schools and things like that. I want to remind you one time before we leave today, thanks for making Locked on Nebraska your first listen. Now head over, check out the Locked on College Football podcast. You can find it in the description right below this. If you're watching with us on YouTube, if you're listening with us on the audio podcast platforms as well, that is the Locked on College Football podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.